a lot of guys out there just are like, oh, my struggles. There's no guys out there that was an alcoholic or that was, porn addiction, whatever, name it. You know what I mean? Put a tag on it. Like, it doesn't matter what your struggle is. There's somebody at Men of Iron for you.
Welcome to the Men of Iron podcast. We are in the middle of our restoration series, just sharing stories of lives changed in the lives of men. And I am super excited to have my friend Lou Zoeller here today. What's going on, brother?
Not much, man. Steve, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man, this is exciting.
This is awesome. So
you were on the Men of Iron podcast many moons ago.
Many moons ago. I was so good you waited this long to have me back. That's kind of how it...
Don't go back and find it, because if you compare it to the visual experience you're getting right now, it's a lot different.
That's cool. No, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Awesome. Well, just let the viewers, listeners know who Lou is.
Sure. My name's Lou Zoeller. I'll be 46 next Wednesday. I have a lovely wife, Melissa Zoeller, who I've been blessed with for 16 years. And we have 7 children. Coral, who's our oldest, she's 16. Dominic, 15. Down to Sophie, who's 9. Isabel, who's 7. And Oakley and Tatum are both 6. And Carson is 5.
Melissa's going to fact check that. So
She will. I checked it this morning with her. I made sure. I'm like, honey, is this right? She's like, yes.
That's great.
Yeah, great kids. I work for PPL, who's the local electric company here. Love God, love my life, love Men of Iron. So thanks for having me.
Love the Steelers, if you can't tell.
Well, they love the Steelers, yes.
I won't hold that against you.
That's okay, man. Don't worry about it. So
Awesome. Well, as I mentioned, this is our restoration series, just hearing how God has worked in the lives of men. So we just kind of love to hear your faith journey.
Sure. It was kind of cool. I was able to listen to yours the other day. I was watching, and similar stories, I would say, but difference is I grew up Catholic with a great family, great mom, dad, younger brother, 2 great older sisters. Funny story about me is grew up Catholic, wanted to be a priest, basically up until I was about 12 years old, and a girl came by and gave me a kiss on the cheek, and I was just like, okay, maybe priest might not be for me. So, but no, after that, just kind of living life, kind of got away from faith for a while. Great thing about my story is the person that brought me back turned out to be my wife. I met her at work years later, and we just kind of struck up a friendship. Nothing crazy, just talking at work, and she started sharing her faith with me, and I thought I was, still bundled up in faith with my walk within the Catholic Church, but I realized I didn't really have that special relationship she kept talking about.
Yeah.
And I remember, we used to have some, conversations that got a little heated. And I remember one night I was on the phone with her, and I just had enough. I was like, I don't want to hear this anymore, And I remember hanging the phone, hung up the phone with her, threw the phone against the wall, and I had a moment that, most people, when they say this, and I hear people say this, I'm like, man, something's wrong with you. Do I need to go somewhere to for a mental institution? But I had a conversation with God that night that just rocked me. It was just, I was like, what is this? What is going on in my life? And it took me a while to kind of get back in good graces with Melissa, but I told her what happened, and, she started walking me through that journey. And then, fast forward a few years, we got married. We had, our 2 oldest right off the bat, and we got involved at Victory Church, and just the men that I met through there, yourself included, were just, kind of changed my life.
Yeah.
I realized that there was something missing, and that was it. Fun story for everybody out there. Me and Steve were baptized on the same day at Victory.
Let's go.
It was like a brotherhood with someone that I never knew. Didn't really get to know you very much, but the fact that I was able to walk through that journey with you, I'll never forget that day as long as I live. And then, a couple years later, I got involved in Men of Iron, and, the rest has been awesome. So, yeah.
It is cool to think kind of just our friendship and the way it's been interwoven through the time, just the baptism, meeting through there. Because even we didn't know each other at all when we got baptized together. And then, just seeing you in the halls of church, and then obviously getting into mentorship.
Yeah. I was joking with Melissa. I was like, I remember the first time I met Steve, we were we were going to meet with the pastor before baptism, and this guy rolls up, speds into the parking lot, and he's blaring this music, and he gets out and he's got this eagle scarf, and I'm like, look at this guy, man, geez, what the heck? And then we got set in the same room together, and then by that Sunday we were sitting there like hugging each other and just crying, going, wow, we just did this together. You know what I mean? Cool. Like, we're part of this forever. So
that's so cool.
It was really neat. It was really cool. Like, God, God just has. It's funny, like I meet a lot of I still in touch with some buddies from high school and stuff, and they just see the difference in me, because back then, kind of, was involved in drugs, alcohol, stuff like that. And now it's just different, you know, and it's a good different. It's I've enjoyed my journey, you know what I mean? Because it wouldn't make me who I am, but yeah. So
thinking through that God moment, obviously Melissa, your wife, played a huge part in that transition. You ever think back, like, what if, like, you didn't, whether it's like you didn't meet Melissa or didn't have that, come to Jesus moment, do you ever think like where your life would be?
I do. I don't, honestly, to be honest with you, I feel like I don't know if I'd be here today because of that, because of where I was going with my drinking and stuff. Like I grew up in a small town up north called Wilkes-Barre, and you kind of knew everybody there. And I remember getting pulled over like 5-6 times drinking and driving, and nothing ever happened to me because I kind of knew everybody. And I don't want to say that, but I feel like I was going down a pretty dark path, even though people around me didn't think so. You know what I mean? Like, when you sit back and look at it, you're like, wow, you did struggle, and would you have been here today? So yeah, I definitely think God got a hold of me for a good reason, and that's why I'm here today. Yeah. So, and I always like to say He used my wife as a tool, just to come into my life, do some work, and then He took over. Yeah. And yeah.
That's cool. It is cool how similar our stories are, because it's very similar with me and Ashley when we met, and she was kind of a catalyst for that faith growth. You spoke a little bit about just kind of mentors and Men of Iron. What was that season like for you, and just even being introduced to Men of Iron, if you remember that?
I do. I remember when they kicked it off at Victory, and I was just like, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. And then year 2 came, still didn't really feel the reason to jump. And then me and Melissa were going through a little bit of a rough patch, and I remember talking to our children's pastor, because we were very involved in kids ministry. And he was just like, Lou, you should do it. He goes, it would be great for you, your growth, And I was like, okay, great. I'll do it, So I signed up, and it's funny. I said it after that first year. I was like, there's never going to be a time like this. Like, this first year, it'll never be matched. It was the best year of my life. I dove into the Bible. I got to know my mentor like amazingly well. I consider him like a friend, a brother. And then I became a mentor, and I was just like, wow, this year's never going to be amazing. Like, I remember Brandon Goss was my first protege. I got to meet, didn't have really much like a little bit in common with sports, but we just kicked off, and, he was walking through some rough stuff, and I was able to like kind of help him through that. And I was at the end of that year, I'm thinking, there's never going to be another better year than this. Yeah. And then I got to do it again with you. and I thought the same thing. Like, wow, I was like, it's amazing what God's doing. Like, you know what I mean? Like he like, especially through Men of Iron, like He puts you in this little time capsule for that year. Yeah. And it's just like, that year is just about you and that guy. And you know what I mean? Just walking through it. And just because you're the mentor doesn't mean you don't have your faults, and, you don't bring anything to the table, because you do. Yeah. But yeah, it's been amazing. Like, the men that I was, part of, and like the journey I walk with, like with you and with Brandon and with Andy Burkholder, who's my best friend, you know what I mean? Like, I met him through Men of Iron, and, he's an amazing man, and he was my protege, but there's days that I look up to him, just the great father he is, and, husband. It's just been awesome, this organization. It's been 12 years since I've been a part of this. Wow. And just in and out, mentor and protege. And, it's done so much to me, and that I could never thank it enough, to be honest with you. So
that's amazing. It really is that idea of iron sharpening iron. And it's not just like the protege being sharpened. Like, you think about how many times you've been through the program as a mentor, and you're being sharpened just as much as the protege.
I agree. Yeah. I can't Yeah. I every time I get done with like, meeting with a guy or like, we have our meeting, I walk out of there going, wow, I learned a lot more today. I hope they learned something, they took something from our conversation.
It's also this idea of like, if you're challenging your protege to like be in the Bible or, holding him accountable to certain goals with his wife or kids, like you should probably be living that out
100%.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's been, cause it was funny. Like I was the protege for the first time and then I was the mentor. And then like years have gone by and then, some of my struggles have come back. Like when I first got a part of Men of Iron, like, I didn't realize I was, kind of dabbling in like, like a porn addiction or I was still drinking, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, it's only like a beer here, a beer there. And then, fast forward to where I'm at now, none of that stuff is in my life anymore. It's like, I just realized if I'm going to hold these guys accountable for certain things, I need to be, holding myself 100% that way. So,
hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Men of Iron podcast. God has given Men of Iron a vision to change a culture one man at a time, and we cannot do that without your partnership. Our financial partners are not bystanders or accessories to the vision. They're equal partners in the work God is accomplishing. Join the movement of God by generously investing in His work. Become a monthly partner and commit to a minimum of $27 a month and equip a man with the tools needed to know God and know their purpose for 1 year. Monthly giving creates sustainability for our organization as it works to cover regular operating costs, allowing us to dream and create new opportunities for impact. As an Iron partner, you will receive exclusive connections to God's work throughout the year with special communications, events, and touch points. Find out more at menofiron.org/donate.
To the viewer or listener out there who doesn't really, like maybe he's never been through the program through Men of Iron or Strong 27, like how would you describe kind of the mentorship program to somebody?
The great thing, I always look at Men of Iron. I think I'm going to use a Tomlinism here, just so you guys know, I'm a Steeler fan. But he goes, he always used to say, your struggles don't make you special. A lot of guys out there just are like, oh, my struggles. There's no guys out there that was an alcoholic or that was, porn addiction, whatever, name it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Put a tag on it. Like, it doesn't matter what your struggle is. There's somebody at Men of Iron for you. I talk to guys a lot. I always just turn them towards Men of Iron because I'm like, you need someone to walk through this with you. You're not going to sit across from a pastor or a perfect person. That person is not perfect. You know what I mean? We're all imperfect. So send an email, call the number, you know what I mean? Because there's a man walking stuff through you. Like there's times that I struggle that I can pick up the phone and I know you're going to answer, or I can shoot you a text and you're going to answer. And I can do that with any of the guys I mentioned before. I had a conversation with you that I was talking to a guy and he was just like, wow, I wish Men of Iron was longer than a year. And I'm like, but it is. Yeah. I was like, because, just going through struggles, I picked up the phone the other day and I called 3 guys. It was you, it was Vinny DePaul, and it was Andy Burkholder. And you guys answered and you were there. And what I loved about it was you didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. You tell me what I need to hear. And it's all through Men of Iron. That's what we do. You know what I mean? Like it's not a guy that's going to, hold you with kid gloves. Yeah. It's a guy that's going to hold you accountable, whoever that person is across from you. And I think when I speak to guys and I introduce them to Men of Iron, if I'm wearing a t-shirt or something like that, like that's the number one thing I say. I was like, this guy's going to hold you accountable and tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And I think for me, that is what has challenged me the 12 years I've been a part of it. So
that's amazing. Yeah, it really is. Like, I love what you said about it's not just a 1-year program, because like the relationships I've formed with you and other men I've gone through Men of Iron with, they're lifelong friendships.
Yeah.
Like
right.
They're going to be there for forever.
Yeah, it's great. And that's like I say that to my wife a lot. I'm like, I'll go a few months without talking to Steve, and then all of a sudden, I'll just shoot him a text, or he'll shoot me a text, and we're right back in it. Yep. And it just knowing that there's other men out there that have struggled, but also knowing that there's men out there that can walk your journey with you. Yeah. I think it's an amazing thing, and just the outlets that Men of Iron has provided me. So like I know I mentioned to you, I'm part of a workout group called F3. I would have never known that if I would have never known like a couple guys through Men of Iron. They're a part of that. Yep. And now I got put into this group, and that's been a blessing to me. Like, it's just all something that trickled through something that I started 12 years ago. That's amazing. Saying, I'll be a part of this. So.
Shout out F3. What's your nickname for F3?
And the nickname F3 is Trojan. I'm man of the year, just so you know, throwing it out there to everybody. So
that's such an amazing word of encouragement, though, for men listening. Is this idea of like men that are struggling with things, like they think they're on an island, like they think they're alone, but there is a guy out there that is struggling with the exact same thing as you. It just takes that kind of vulnerability of like admitting that you're struggling and reaching out to somebody and just saying like, hey man, I need help. Will you like walk alongside me?
Yeah. I think going through Men of Iron, it's softened that for me. Yeah. And I've known like some guys that I've talked to over the years, it's softened that for them. I remember I was telling you, I was up at a conference up in Reading, and there was a guy, I was walking up the stairs and I had my Men of Iron t-shirt on and he had a jacket on. He goes, hey buddy. And he opened up his jacket and it said Men of Iron. And I sat there with him for like 15 minutes, just talking to him about cool. like, you know, his struggles and like what he was like. And, you know, he was this tough old guy. He didn't get a part of Men of Iron until he was in his early 60s.
Wow.
And he said it changed his life. Like his wife and him never have communicated better, and his kids, you know, he's starting to rekindle relationships with them.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, there's no way this guy would have said any of this stuff to anybody, like, you know, a year, 2 years prior to him being a part of it. That's because incredible. he put it all inwards.
Yep.
And Men of Iron, it's not a shame to throw it out there and say you have a struggle. You know, it's not easy to sit there and go, yeah, I was an alcoholic. Right. Yeah, I was addicted to porn. Yeah, I was, you know, doing things I shouldn't have done. Yep. That's not easy. You know what I mean? As a man, it's hard because you're supposed to be the strong one. But I've learned that, you know, it's okay to share that. It's okay to share that struggle.
Yeah.
So, real quick story. I remember, I hope I don't cry here. So if it does, we're going to have to edit it out. I remember my first year I was going through Men of Iron. Again, I was going through it with Vinny DePaul, who unfortunately is doing an interview later today. But I remember sitting there, and he used to challenge me to read the Bible because that was my goal. I wanted to read it and understand it. Yeah. I just didn't want to just say, hey, I read it. And I remember one night I was sitting at the table, and I had like my phone out, and I was reading from there, and I was reading from my Bible, and I was taking notes. And my wife came over and gave me a kiss on the cheek, and she just said, hey, I'm proud of you. And I was like, that just... I sat there just bawling my eyes out going, holy cow. Like, just, you know, I remember just talking to her the next day because I was like an emotional wreck. And I'm like, why are you proud of me? She's like, because you said you were going to do something and you're doing it, you know, and you're putting yourself out there. And, you know, that to me will always be my favorite moment of Men of Iron, because it was like, it's not just what I think that I'm going through and I see what I'm going through and I see I'm changing. It's the my kids, my wife, people around me can look back and go, something different about him, you know, in the good way. Yeah. Like there's something just, wow, like I want to be a part of that. So it's been a journey. Yeah. So
what are some, when you think about some of those things that Melissa and maybe the kids too, like saw from a change from maybe the beginning of Men of Iron to like your first year through, like what were those changes you think, like specifically?
I just think for me, it was just my accountability as a dad. Like, you know, I would work long hours and I'd be exhausted when I get home, and I just didn't really feel like I had enough time with the kids. And I think it was more or less like, you need to manage you know, your time. Like, you know, I know you were doing a podcast not too long ago. You talked about silencing your phone and just kind of getting away from it because your kids would look and see that you're working. And I think for me, it was just like, all right, I'm putting it all down because they're what matter to me. They're the reason why, you know, I'm here, because I love them, you know? So I think those are the changes for me. It's giving them more time, giving them more of me, and, me being able to allow myself to stop what I'm doing and just say, hey, I want to spend time with you guys. Yeah. So, I know like, last year was like a struggle for me. Like, you know, I was having a lot of stuff going on, and, you know, I reached out to you and I started just reworking through the Men of Iron steps again, like just really working on myself. And my son, my oldest son, Dom, he gave me a little wooden thing, like a little saying, and it had a little kid on it. And he's like, Dad, I love you. And he's like, I wanted you to have this because I saw it and I thought of you. And it just said, no matter how old I get, and how tall I get, I'll always look up to you. And I was just like, wow. Like, you know, like that hit me hard. Wow. And I was just like, you know, it's all because of this. Like, you know, like, yeah, I know, you know, like Men of Iron has been huge to me. And like, I think God has done so much through Men of Iron to me. Like, you know, it just worked out to where they took this broken guy and, you know, just, you know, put me back together and made me stronger. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
What do you want your legacy to be? It's a big one.
I know that's the big question. You know?
We like to hit you with the big one.
I know
at the close
Holy
of it.
Smokes. What do I want my legacy to be? Well, like before we started filming, I mentioned, you know, Steve writes an amazing Men of Iron Minute, and he sends it out to guys. And you talked about your dad and like how, you know, his legacy was you. You know what I mean? Like just how you, like, you know, how he worked through you and how, you know, God worked through his life. And I want my legacy to be to my kids. Like, you know, I always tell them, I was like, you don't have to be perfect. You don't. Like, you know, no one's asking you to be perfect. You're not Jesus. So for me, I just wanted to know that when you get knocked down and you have your struggles, it's okay to admit them and get back up and keep going. I was like, I hope when my kids see me and they see my struggles and all the times I've been knocked down, I just pick back up and start anew the next day. I hope they take that from there. And I hope that's what people, you know, if they ever talk about me outside of how my good looks and my love of the Steelers, they say, you know, that guy was, you know, nothing can keep him down. He was always upbeat and ready to go on. So
that's good.
Yeah.
As we close, what word of encouragement would you give to men out there listening?
It's like I said earlier, like your struggles aren't special to you. You know what I mean? Like if you're struggling with anything, there's somebody out there that has struggled with you. And let that person be a part of your life and walk you through that. Because I think that's just the most important thing is knowing that there's other men out there that have had your problems. And I think what the great thing about Men of Iron is what they do is they pair you with someone that they know is going to walk through that with you. Yeah. And it's funny because I know when I got paired with the guys I got paired with, I'm like, I don't. And then you realize, like, oh, you do. Okay, you do have similarities. You know, they paired me with the guy that I'm able to talk to this about and walk through this about. Yeah. So
it is pretty cool how that happens. I think about, you touched on it a little bit, but we went through a mentorship together in 2016.
It's wild.
Yeah. You were my mentor, and I was just about to get married, and Ashley and I were dealing with some, you know, family issues that were a big deal at the time.
Sure.
And we're honestly threatening our marriage to be. And I got paired with you and talking through this stuff. And you literally had walked through a very similar story prior to your marriage with Melissa. And it's like, man, like, yeah. And it was just like so much wisdom you were able to provide me. And it was like, I look back at that mentorship. It was an incredible and powerful year and allowed Ashley and I to go into our marriage with so much strength when like it could have gone the opposite way if not for that mentorship. So
yeah, I feel the same way. Like again, it was awesome. Like, you know, it was awesome when that happened. I remember going home after our first meeting going, oh, this, you know, like I feel like I'm looking in a mirror here. Right. I was like, you know, I know what he's going through. So, but it never makes it easy when you know that person's going through what you went through, because you don't know how they're going to react because you reacted in a different way. But it was great that God put us together. You know, Men of Iron put us together, and we were able to work it out together. And like, you know, that was what was gratifying to me. I was, you know, you invited me to your wedding. Yeah. It was an amazing ceremony. You know, it was awesome to see that. So,
and I'm forever grateful to you for that. So that's why I love you so much.
Oh man, same here, brother. So.
Oh man, and now we're going through a mentorship again in 2024,
exactly,
25.
Another one. Yeah,
how cool is that?
This is awesome. It's been a great year. It's been fun going through this with you again. You know, it's cool. I know you don't know this, but like every time we get done meeting, I get back in my car and I sit there and cry a little bit because it's just like, it's awesome. Like, you know, to go through this with you again, and just like for the fact that I reached out and said, hey Steve, I'm struggling, man. Yeah. And you know, you didn't hesitate. You were like, all right, let's go. We'll start back up. And I was like, and I think that's what's special about this is, you know, Men of Iron doesn't run away from that. It's like, all right, let's go, brother. We got somebody here for you. Yeah. And, you know, fortunately for me, it was you, and it was great. And, you know, and you've been awesome. You've been like a rock to me. So
it's fun, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on the pod today,
man. I utterly can't stand saying good things about you, knowing that you're an Eagle fan. So,
oh, well, thanks for being our guest today, man. It's been an honor. You're such a great friend, and I'm thankful for your friendship. And
thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for Men of Iron. Thank you just for you, and go Chiefs.
Oh, boy. Here we go. Go Birds. Thanks for watching the Men of Iron podcast. We will catch you next week on the Restoration series.
Thanks for listening to the Men of Iron podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. At Men of Iron, we exist to change a culture one man at a time, and we'd love to have you partner with us. So go to menofiron.org to see how you can get involved, or donate at menofiron.org/donate.